Her friends threw a bachelorette trip. She came back asking for a break. I smiled and showed her the photos. She had no words. Neither did her parents. Nobody moved. Turns out her family had a debt. And my fiancé was how they planned to pay it off. My name is Wade Hanson. I'm 43 years old. I own 3 car washes in the Raleigh area. Nothing flashy, but they run clean, turn profit, and they're mine. Built them from scratch over 15 years. I've got a son, Tyler, 19, just started his first year at NC State. Smart kid. Good head on his shoulders. His mom and I split when he was 6. No drama. No war. Just 2 people who figure out too late they weren't meant to be married. We've kept it civil. Tyler turned out better than either of us deserved. About 4 years ago, I met Naomi Strickland at a charity auction in downtown Raleigh. She was 30, laughed at the right moments, had this way of listening that made you feel like the only person in the room. We dated slow, built something real, or so I thought. 18 months ago, I proposed. She said yes. Her parents, Gloria and Gerald Strickland, were there when it happened, and they smiled and hugged her, and I thought that was that. I should have clocked Gerald's handshake that night. Firm, sure, but his eyes never warmed up. And Gloria, she had that particular smile some women deploy when they approve of the occasion, but not the man. I noticed. I filed it away and let it go. The wedding was set for the second Saturday of October. Our venue was booked, a converted barn outside of Cary, string lights, sunflowers, the whole picture. We'd spent 8 months planning it together. Naomi was hands-on with every detail. She knew the exact shade of white for the table linens. She'd tasted 7 different buttercream frostings before settling on one. I watched all of it and thought, this woman is ready. This is real. What I didn't know was that Naomi had quietly asked to push the date once before, about 7 months earlier. She'd said it was work stress. I believed her. I rescheduled without a question. Now I wonder what was already in motion back then. 10 days before the wedding, Gloria called. Naomi was right there in the kitchen when it happened, and I watched her face change as she listened. Then she put the call on speaker. Apparently it was that kind of news, and Gloria's voice filled the room with warmth and excitement. "We want to take you on a little trip, sweetheart," Gloria said. "One last girls' thing before the big day. Savannah, your cousins, your college friends, 2 nights at a beautiful inn. We've already looked at flights." I stood there with a spatula in my hand, halfway through flipping pancakes, and felt something cold move through my chest. 10 days out. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched Naomi. Her eyes had gone bright in a way I hadn't seen in weeks, maybe longer. She looked at me. "It's just 2 nights, Wade. I'll be back Thursday. That gives us a full week before the rehearsal." I kept my voice easy. "Savannah's a long way for 2 nights. It's a bachelorette trip," Gloria chimed in, still on speaker, as if my concern was quaint. "Every bride deserves one." I wanted to say, "Not 1 week before the wedding. She doesn't." But I didn't. I swallowed it down and told her to have a good time, because I didn't want to be the guy who couldn't give his fiancée a weekend with her people. I kissed her forehead at the airport 2 days later and watched her disappear through the terminal doors, her mother close behind. That night, the house felt cavernous. I sat on the back porch with a beer and the sound of cicadas and told myself it was fine. Naomi had sent a text around 9. "Landed safe. Inn is beautiful. Missing you." I wrote back a heart. She sent one back. I slept badly. Not because of a specific fear, more like that low hum you get when something's off and you can't put your finger on it. By morning, I talked myself out of it. She was with family. It was 2 nights. Then, the next afternoon, Tyler called. He didn't lead with small talk. Tyler never does. He just said, "Hey, Dad, is that Naomi's Instagram? The private one she added you on?" I said it was. "She posted a story," he said. "There's a guy in it. Standing pretty close." "Who is he?" I was quiet for a second. Screenshot it and sent it to me. The image landed on my phone 30 seconds later. Naomi at a rooftop bar. Not Savannah. The skyline behind her was wrong for Savannah. Laughing, a glass raised, and a man beside her I had never seen before. Dark blazer, easy smile, the kind of posture that said he was used to being the most comfortable person in any room. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I called Brett Harmon. Brett Harmon and I go back 22 years. We met on a job site when we were both 21, hauling lumber for a contractor who paid cash and asked no questions. Brett, eventually moved into private security work, then drifted into freelance investigations when the hours got better and the pay got worse. He's the kind of man who listens more than he talks and never asks why you need something, just whether you need it done right. I called him from my driveway, still sitting in the truck, Tyler's screenshot open on my phone. I need you to look into something, I said. Naomi's on a bachelorette trip, supposed to be Savannah. That skyline in the background isn't Savannah. Brett didn't miss a beat. Send me the photo. Give me the names you know, and I'll start pulling threads. I forwarded the image and gave him what I had, Gloria and Gerald Strickland, Naomi's parents. The fact that Gloria had organized the trip. The man in the photo, unknown, dark blazer, comfortable in his own skin. I'll have something for you by tomorrow evening, Brett said. Don't do anything loud in the meantime. Never do, I told him. I went inside and made dinner I didn't eat. The house had that particular silence that only shows up when someone who's usually in it is gone. I washed the dishes, sat on the couch, and pulled up Naomi's Instagram again. The story had already disappeared. The 24-hour window had closed. But I'd seen it. Tyler had seen it. And now Brett was on it. Around 10 that night, Naomi texted, "Having so much fun. Everyone says hi. Miss you, babe." I typed back, "Miss you too. Sleep well." I didn't sleep at all. The next morning I drove out to check on the Garner location. One of my 3 car washes, the busiest one. Standing there watching the equipment cycle, listening to the hum of the brushes, I did what I always do when something's eating at me. I kept my hands moving and my mouth shut. 2 of my crew leads flagged a pressure issue on Bay 3. I dealt with it. Normalcy is a useful mask. Brett called at 6:47 that evening. "Her name is Colton Lane," he said. Well, his name. Colton Lane, 36. His father is Raymond Lane. Runs Lane Capital out of Charlotte. Commercial real estate, private equity, the whole package. The son has his fingers in a few ventures, mostly funded by daddy, but he presents well. Drives the right cars. Wears the right watch. I leaned against the kitchen counter and said nothing. Brett kept going. "They're not in Savannah, Wade. They're in Charleston. High-end Inn on the Battery. I've already confirmed Colton Lane checked in 2 days ago. Same property, same dates as Naomi and her parents. Her parents are there too," I said. It wasn't a question. Gloria and Gerald checked into the same in the morning Naomi arrived. They're all under the same roof. He paused. "There's something else." I did some digging on the Strickland family finances. Gerald has a business loan he hasn't paid down in 4 years, taken out through a private lending firm. The firm traces back to Lane Capital. The kitchen went very quiet around me. "How much?" I asked. $340,000, Brett said. "Give or take." I set my coffee mug down on the counter slowly, deliberately, like if I moved too fast something would shatter. "So she's not on a bachelorette trip," I said. "She's at a curated introduction," Brett said. I don't know how much Naomi knows about the financial piece, but her parents know exactly what they're doing. I thanked him and told him to keep watching. He said he'd have photos and documentation within 24 hours. I hung up and stood in my kitchen for a long time without moving. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't call Naomi. I didn't text Gloria. I didn't drive to Charlotte and knock on Raymond Lane's door. I stood there, let it settle, and started thinking. Because here's the thing about being a man who built something from nothing. You learn early that a bad reaction costs more than the problem itself. The guy who blows up the moment things go sideways loses. Every time. I'd spent 15 years making decisions with a clear head under pressure. I wasn't going to stop now. That night, my mom called. Norma Hansen, 68 years old, sharp as a tack and twice as direct. She asked how the wedding prep was going. I told her fine. She was quiet for a second, then said, "You sound like your father did the week before something went wrong. You sure everything's okay?" "Not yet," I said. "But it will be." She didn't push. She never does. She just said, "Tyler called me today. He sounded worried about you." That hit somewhere I wasn't expecting. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I started a document. Not a plan. Not yet. Just notes. What I knew. What I still needed to know. What I was going to do when I knew enough. The next morning, Brett sent the first folder. I opened it, and everything I'd been hoping wasn't true turned out to be exactly that. Brett sent the files at 6:14 in the morning. I know the exact time because I hadn't slept more than 2 hours, and I'd been watching my phone like it owed me something. I poured a coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the folder. It was organized the way Brett always organizes things. Clean, methodical, no fluff. A summary page first, then photos, then documents. I read the summary, standing up, then had to sit back down. Colton Lane had checked into the same Charleston Inn as the Stricklands on Tuesday evening, confirmed by a reservation receipt Brett had obtained through a contact at the property. He wasn't a coincidence. He was the reason for the trip. The photos came next. Brett had a source on the ground who'd spent a day in the area. The images were taken from a distance, but were clear enough. Naomi and Colton at an outdoor restaurant on the waterfront. Her leaning forward over the table, him talking with his hands, both of them laughing. Another one on a cobblestone street, walking side by side, not touching but close. A third of what looked like a rooftop bar, the harbor behind them. Naomi had a glass of wine. Colton had his arm resting along the back of her chair. Not around her, not quite, but not nowhere either. And then there was the video. Brett had flagged it with a note. Lane recorded this himself. Pulled from his public Instagram story before he deleted it. 11 seconds. I press play. Colton's face in selfie mode, grinning. Behind him, blurred but unmistakable, Naomi at a table, laughing at something off camera. Colton looked directly at the lens and said, low and easy, like it was the most natural thing in the world. 1 week. Watch. I played it again. Then I closed the laptop. I sat there for a while with my hands flat on the table. Not shaking, just still. The next document was a receipt from a jewelry boutique on King Street in Charleston. Colton Lane had purchased a bracelet, rose gold, engraved, $340. The receipt had Naomi's name in the notes field. A gift. Already bought. Brett had added a note at the bottom. Confirm whether item was received. Source indicates yes. I thought about that bracelet for a long time. Then I called Brett back and told him to keep building the file. I wanted everything documented. Dates, times, receipts, photos. He said he'd have the full package ready by the time Naomi landed Thursday. After I hung up, I went out to the Apex location and spent 4 hours doing physical work. Replacing a worn roller assembly on Bay 2, resealing a drainage joint, touching up paint on the signage. My crew gave me space without me asking for it. Men who work with their hands know what it looks like when a man needs to think without being bothered. That evening, Casey Hara called me. Casey was Naomi's best friend from college. Sharp, no nonsense, the kind of woman who says what she means and doesn't apologize for it. She and I had always gotten along fine. She called from what sounded like a parking lot. Voice low. Wade, she said, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it calmly. I'm calm, I said. I wasn't invited on this trip, she said. Naomi told me it was a small thing, just family and 2 cousins. But I saw photos online this morning. There are no cousins in those photos. And there's a man I've never seen before who looks very comfortable in Naomi's personal space. She paused. I don't know what's going on, but something's not right. I know, I said. Silence for a beat. You already know. I've known since Tuesday night. I said. I'm handling it. Another pause. Then Casey said, quietly, she's not a bad person, Wade. But her parents have had their thumb on her whole life. I don't know how much of this is her and how much is them. I appreciate that, I said. I really do. But right now I need the full picture before I decide what I think. She said she understood. She also said she was available if I needed anything. I told her I'd remember that. I went to bed that night with the folder on the table and a clear enough head to know what the next 2 days had to look like. Thursday came the way bad days usually do. Quiet, ordinary looking, no warning on the label. I'd spent Wednesday doing the things that keep a life running. Payroll for the car wash crews, a call with my insurance broker, a long overdue conversation with my accountant about expanding the Apex location. Normal things. Useful things. I did them all with a folder, sitting in a manila envelope on the passenger seat of my truck like a stone I was carrying from place to place. Brett had delivered the complete package Wednesday afternoon. More photos. Hotel folios showing Gloria and Gerald on the same floor as Naomi. A copied receipt for a couple spa treatment. Booked under Colton Lane. 1 male, 1 female, same day. Naomi had signed the intake form. Her signature, clear as daylight. I looked at that signature for a long time. The other document that stopped me cold was a screenshot Brett had pulled from a now-deleted post by one of Colton's friends. A guy who apparently couldn't help himself. The caption read, "See finally making his move. Dad's been setting this up for months. She's something else. Posted Tuesday night. Deleted by Wednesday morning. But Brett had it. Dad's been setting this up for months. I read that line maybe a dozen times. Then I put the folder away and didn't open it again until I needed to. Thursday morning, I checked in with Tyler. He'd texted the night before to ask if I was okay. I called him instead of texting back. Felt like the right thing to do. I'm good, I told him. What you sent me Monday. That mattered. Don't second guess that. Tyler was quiet for a second. Is it bad? It's what it is, I said. I've got it under control. You need me to come home? Stay at school, I said firmly. Do your thing. I'll call you when there's something to tell. He didn't push. He said, okay, Dad. I love you. I told him the same and hung up before he could hear anything in my voice that I didn't want him to hear. I got to the airport 40 minutes early. Parked in short term, walked in, found her gate on the board. Flight from Charleston via Charlotte. On time. I stood near the arrival's exit with my hands in my jacket pockets and the manila envelope in the truck. I hadn't brought it in with me. Not yet. She came through the doors 20 minutes after landing. Rolling carry-on, sunglasses pushed up in her hair. Tired the way travel makes you tired. She saw me, and her face did something I'd never seen it do before. A flicker, half a second, like she was recalibrating. Then the smile came up. She hugged me. I hugged her back, solid and real, because I'm not the kind of man who tips his hand before he's ready. Good trip? I asked. Exhausting, she said. But good. Savannah is beautiful. She said Savannah, not Charleston. I picked up her bag and walked her to the truck. The whole ride she talked about the inn, the food, how her cousins were doing. I listened, asked 2 or 3 easy questions. She filled in every gap without me prompting her. She never mentioned Colton Lane. Not once. I pulled into the driveway and cut the engine. Before she opened her door, I said, easy and even, did you get any gifts while you were down there? She turned to look at me. Something shifted in her eyes, just for a moment. What do you mean? Souvenirs, I said. Anything like that. Just a candle, she said. From a little shop on the main street. I nodded. Okay. We went inside. She showered and changed, and we ate dinner at the kitchen table like nothing was wrong. She talked about the wedding seating chart. I passed her the salt when she asked for it. The manila envelope sat on the counter the whole time. She didn't notice it. Or if she did, she didn't ask. That night, lying in the dark, I listened to her breathing slow into sleep and thought about a rose gold bracelet with her name engraved on it, sitting somewhere in her luggage 2 rooms away. Tomorrow, I decided. We'd talk tomorrow. Friday morning came in gray and still. I was up before 6, dressed, coffee made, the manila envelope sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it the night before. I hadn't moved it. I wanted her to see it first thing. Not as a threat, as a fact. Something already present in the room before the conversation started. Naomi came downstairs around 7:30 in her robe, hair loose, eyes still soft from sleep. She poured herself a coffee and leaned against the counter across from me. We talked for a few minutes about nothing. The weather, whether the Apex location needed new signage, what we were doing for dinner. Normal morning conversation. The kind that fills space without meaning much. Then she set her mug down and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on her before. Careful. Pre-constructed. Like she'd been rehearsing it. Wade, she said. I've been thinking. About us. About the wedding. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I think we need to take a step back, she said. Maybe slow things down. Take a break and make sure we're both really ready for this. A break. 6 days before our wedding. She said it quietly, like the volume made it gentler. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I did something she clearly wasn't expecting. I smiled. Not wide, not warm, just a slow, steady smile that said I'd already been 10 steps ahead of this conversation for 4 days. Okay, I said. I picked up the manila envelope from the counter and set it on the table in front of her. Why don't you open that first? She looked at the envelope, then at me. What is it? Open it, I said. She sat down slowly and pulled out the folder. The summary page first. She read it with her jaw tight and her eyes moving fast. Then the photos. Naomi at the waterfront restaurant with Colton. The rooftop bar. The cobblestone street. His arm along the back of her chair. She turned each page and said nothing. Her breathing changed, shorter, shallower, but she kept going. Then she hit the video screenshot. Brett had printed a still from it with a timestamp and Colton's caption transcribed below. 1 week. Watch. She put the page down flat on the table. She had no words. She just sat there staring at the image of Colton Lane grinning into his own camera with her blurred in the background, and she had absolutely nothing to say. That was the moment the front door opened. Gloria came in first, breezy and bright, a tote bag over one arm and a binder of wedding seating charts under the other. Gerald followed 2 steps behind, phone already in hand, barely looking up. They moved through the front hallway like they owned the place, the way they always did. "Morning, you too," Gloria said, rounding into the kitchen. Then she stopped. She saw Naomi at the table, pale and rigid. She saw the photos spread in front of her. She saw me standing against the counter with my coffee and my expression that wasn't asking any questions. Gerald walked in behind her and stopped too. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. The kitchen held all 4 of us in silence, so complete I could hear the refrigerator hum. Gloria recovered first. She always did. She set her tote bag down and said, voice carefully light, "What's all this?" "That," I said, "is what your daughter's bachelorette trip actually looked like." Gloria's expression tightened at the corners. Gerald finally put his phone away. Naomi looked up from the table. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Mom, who is Colton Lane?" Gloria opened her mouth and said something about an old family friend, a harmless introduction, nothing serious. I let her finish. Then I reached across the table and turned to the financial summary Brett had included. Gerald's outstanding loan, $340,000. The lending entity traced back to Raymond Lane's holding company. I slid it across to Gerald. He looked at it. His face didn't move, but something in his posture changed, a slight settling, like a man who'd been waiting for a shoe to drop finally hearing it hit the floor. "You want to explain that to her?" I asked him. "Or should I?" Naomi looked from the document to her father. "Dad, what is this?" Gerald said nothing. Gloria jumped in. Something about a business arrangement, about wanting the best for Naomi, about how Colton was a good man from a good family, and she would have seen that if she'd just given it a chance. Her voice stayed smooth and controlled, the voice of a woman who had talked her way out of things her whole life. I didn't interrupt. I let every word land in the room and sit there. When Gloria finished, Naomi turned to me. Her eyes were glassy, and her jaw was set. "Wade, I want you to know that nothing happened between us." I wouldn't. "I believe you," I said. "And I did mostly, but you were there for 3 days. You had dinners with him. You let him buy you a bracelet." I watched her eyes flinch at that. "And you came home and told me you'd been in Savannah." She closed her eyes. "You didn't fight it," I said quietly. "You didn't call me. You didn't walk out. You let them run the whole play, Naomi. And then you came home and asked me for a break." The room was very still. Gloria said, sharp and defensive, she was just keeping an open mind. "That's not a crime." I looked at Gloria. "No," I said. "But lying to the man your daughter is supposed to marry next week is something." Gerald finally spoke. His voice was flat and measured. "Let's not blow this out of proportion." "I haven't raised my voice once," I said. "That's not blowing anything out of proportion. That's just telling the truth in your direction for a change." Naomi pushed back from the table and stood up. She looked at her parents like she was seeing them clearly for the first time and didn't entirely like what she found. Then she looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something complicated, guilt and grief, and maybe the beginning of understanding exactly what had been done. I picked up my coffee, took a sip, and waited. I had nowhere to be. The silence in my kitchen lasted about 30 seconds before Gloria decided she'd had enough of it. "Naomi," she said, her voice shifting into that particular register, warm, reasonable, the voice she used when she was managing a situation. "Sweetheart, nobody is trying to hurt you. We just wanted you to have options. That's all this was." Naomi was still standing. She hadn't moved back toward the table. She hadn't moved toward me either. She stood in the middle of the kitchen like a woman, trying to figure out which direction was forward. "Options," Naomi repeated. The word came out flat. "You flew me to Charleston and sat me down across from a man I'd never met a week before my wedding. And you're calling that options?" Gloria pressed on. "Colton is a wonderful man. His family is established, respected. His family is owed $340,000 by ours," I said. The room went quiet again. I looked at Gerald. He was standing by the counter now, arms crossed, jaw tight. He had the expression of a man who'd calculated every angle on this, and still ended up in the wrong room. You want to talk about that, Gerald? I said. Or are we still pretending this was about Naomi's happiness? Gerald unfolded his arms. That loan has nothing to do with. It has everything to do with it, I said. My voice stayed even. You owe Raymond Lane's company $340,000. Your daughter was the exit strategy. That's not parenting. That's a transaction. Naomi turned to her father. Is that true? Gerald looked at her, and for a moment I saw something almost human in his face, something close to shame. Then it closed back up. It's more complicated than he's making it sound. Then uncomplicated, Naomi said. Her voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. Right now. Explain to me how this is complicated. Gloria stepped forward. The loan is a separate matter entirely. Colton expressed interest in you completely on his own. That's not what the emails say, I said. Gloria stopped. I reached into the folder and pulled out the printed copy of Brett's documentation, the social media post from Colton's friend, the reference to Raymond Lane, setting things up for months. I laid it on the counter where Gloria could see it without me having to hand it to her. She looked at it. The smooth confidence she'd worn since she walked and started showing its seams. Dad's been setting this up for months, I said, reading the caption aloud. That's a direct quote from a man who was there. Naomi sat back down. Not because she was giving up. She sat down because her legs needed a rest from holding the weight of what she was finding out. She pressed her fingers against her forehead and looked at the table. I didn't sleep with him, she said, quietly, to no one in particular. I want that on the record. Nothing happened. I'm not accusing you of that, I said. But you're accusing me of something, she said, looking up. I'm saying you knew something was off and you didn't call me, I said. You came back and you lied about where you'd been. And then you asked me for a break. That's what I'm saying. Her eyes filled. She blinked it back. I didn't know about the loan. I didn't know about any of the arrangement. I thought Mom was just being Mom. Being Mom, Gloria said, offended. You know what I mean, Naomi said, turning on her. Controlling. Pushy. I thought it was one of your things. I didn't realize you'd actually made some kind of deal. We made no deal, Gloria said firmly. Then why does Raymond Lane's holding company have Gerald's signature on a loan agreement? I asked. Gloria had no answer for that. Gerald shifted his weight. We'll handle the loan separately. That's between us and the Lanes. It stopped being between you and the Lanes the moment you put Naomi on a plane to Charleston, I said. The room held that for a moment. Then Casey's name flashed on my phone screen. She was texting, not calling. I glanced at it without picking it up. She'd sent one line. She got the bracelet. I saw it in her bag last night when she came home. Rose gold. Engraved. I set the phone face down. There's a bracelet, I said to Naomi. Rose gold. Engraved. Colton bought it for you at a boutique on King Street. You brought it home. Naomi's face went through several things at once. I was going to return it, she said. I didn't ask for it. He gave it to me at dinner, and I didn't know how to. You kept it, I said. Not cruel. Just true. She didn't answer that. Gloria tried once more. Wade, you're taking one piece of this and building a case. I have the whole folder, Gloria, I said, patting the envelope on the table. Photos, financial records, a video Colton shot himself, a receipt with Naomi's name on it. It's all in here. I've been building the case since Tuesday night, because that's what a man does when something doesn't feel right. I looked around the kitchen at all three of them. Gloria with her binder of seating charts still sitting on the counter like a prop from a play that had already ended, Gerald tight and silent and calculating. Naomi sitting with her hands pressed flat on the table like she needed to feel something solid. Here's where I stand, I said. I'm not yelling. I'm not breaking anything. I'm just a man who wants the truth in the open before we take one more step in any direction. I looked at Naomi specifically. I don't know yet what that direction is, but I'm done moving forward in the dark. Nobody argued with that. Gloria and Gerald left an hour after the kitchen confrontation. Not gracefully. Gloria tried twice more to reframe the Charleston trip as an act of maternal concern, and both times I let her finish before saying something short and accurate that she had no answer for. Gerald barely spoke at all after the loan came out. He shook my hand at the door out of pure muscle memory, and I let him because there was no point in making that smaller than it already was. Naomi stayed. She sat at the kitchen table for a long time after they left, and we talked. Not argued, just talked. She told me she felt something was off from the first evening in Charleston, that Colton had been too easy, too available, too convenient. She said she hadn't understood what she was walking into until she was already in it, and by then leaving felt complicated in ways she couldn't fully articulate. I listened. I asked a few questions. I didn't fill every silence with reassurance, because she didn't need me to manage her feelings. She needed to be honest, and she was being honest, and that was worth something. What she said that stayed with me was this: I've spent my whole life trusting their instincts over my own, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until I was sitting at dinner with a man my mother picked and thinking, this doesn't feel right, but maybe they see something I don't. I told her I understood that. I also told her it didn't make the week disappear. She went upstairs around noon. I went out to the Garner location, checked in with my crew lead, and spent an hour doing paperwork in the small office we keep behind the equipment room. Then I called Brett. I need one more thing, I said. The venue. Our wedding venue. I need to know if the contract has any provisions I can use if I need to make changes to the booking. Brett laughed quietly. That's a new one. I already paid a deposit. I'm not walking away from it without looking at the fine print. Brett said he'd have a look. He called back that evening with good news. The venue had a clause allowing date modification or conversion to a private event booking within 30 days of the original date, provided the total reservation value remained the same. I'd paid $18,000 down. The clause meant I could repurpose the booking without losing a dollar. I made a phone call to the venue coordinator. Friendly, professional. I told her I needed to convert the October booking to a private dinner event. Same date, same space, different format. She confirmed it was possible and said she'd send revised paperwork by morning. Then I started making calls. Not to the wedding guest list. To the people who actually mattered. My crew, my cousins, a handful of friends who'd been in my corner long before Naomi was in the picture. Tyler, who drove down from Raleigh without me, asking twice. Brett, obviously. Casey, who said she'd been waiting for a reason to show up. I told each of them. Saturday night, same venue. Be there at 7. I've got something to show everyone. The last call I made was to Raymond Lane. I didn't plan it. I was sitting in my truck outside the Apex location at 9:30 in the evening, going through Brett's folder one more time, and Raymond Lane's number was in the documentation. Direct line, business card, the kind of number you give to people you expect to be useful. I dialed it. He picked up on the third ring. His voice was smooth and measured, a man who'd taken a lot of calls and handled most of them cleanly. Mr. Hanson, he said, which meant he'd already been briefed. I was wondering when you call. Then you know why I'm calling, I said. I suspect, he said. I want you to know that my involvement in this situation was limited to... I'm going to stop you there, I said. I'm not interested in your version of limited. I'm calling to let you know that everything your son did and everything the Stricklands were part of is documented. Photos, receipts, financial records, a video your son shot himself. I paused. I'm not calling a lawyer. I'm not calling the press. I'm just making sure you understand that I have it all. A long pause. Then, what is it you want, Mr. Hanson? Nothing from you, I said. That's the point. I want you to know that this didn't work, that I know exactly what it was, and that the next move is mine. I hung up before he could respond. I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes after that, listening to the night sounds, the distant hum of traffic on the highway, the tick of the engine cooling down. Then I drove home, ate a sandwich standing at the counter, and went to bed. For the first time all week, I slept 8 solid hours. Saturday arrived clear and cool, the kind of October evening that makes North Carolina feel like it was designed for outdoor events. The venue looked the same as it always had: converted barn, high ceiling, string lights, the view of the tree line through the wide rear windows. I'd spent 15 minutes that afternoon walking the space with the coordinator, confirming the setup. Round tables instead of rows. A screen and projector at the front. My laptop connected and tested. By 6:50, the room was filling. Brett came in first and set up near the back without me asking. Casey arrived next, found a seat near the center, and gave me a nod that said she was ready for whatever this was. Tyler drove up from school. He walked in, shook my hand, and took a seat in the front row with the quiet confidence of a 19-year-old who understood more than he should have to. My mother, Norma, arrived at 7 sharp in her good coat. She hugged me once, firmly, said nothing, and sat down. Then came Gloria and Gerald, exactly as I'd expected. Gloria in pearls, Gerald in his blazer, both of them scanning the room with the practiced composure of people who'd learned long ago how to walk into a space and own it. They found seats near the middle. Naomi came in behind them. She saw me at the front and held my gaze for a moment, searching, uncertain. I gave her a slight nod. She sat. Colton Lane came in 3 minutes later. I had invited him personally. One text, 4 words, Saturday, 7. Be there. He'd replied with a thumbs up, because that's the kind of man he was. He walked in with that easy coastal confidence, scanned the room, spotted Naomi, and smiled at her. She didn't smile back. He found a chair near the side wall. About 22 people in total. Family, close friends, the people whose opinions shaped the rooms I lived in. I stepped to the front at 7:15. Thanks for coming, I said. My voice was steady. I know the invitation was short notice. I appreciate you being here. I looked around the room. Tyler in the front row, Brett at the back, Casey in the middle, my mother with her hands folded in her lap. Most of you know that Naomi and I were supposed to be getting married here next week. I want to explain why that isn't happening. And I want to explain it once, in front of the people who matter. So, there's no version of this story that gets told without the facts. I clicked the laptop. The first slide, a map showing Raleigh, the flight path, and Charleston. The second, the hotel confirmation showing Gerald and Gloria Strickland checked into the same inn as Naomi on the same day as Colton Lane. Murmurs moved through the room. The third slide, the financial summary. Gerald's loan, the Lane Capital connection, $340,000. I heard Gloria shift in her chair. Slide 4, the photographs. Naomi and Colton at the waterfront restaurant, the rooftop bar, the cobblestone street. I let each one sit for 5 seconds before moving to the next. The room was very quiet. Then I played the video. 11 seconds. Colton's face, easy and confident. 1 week. Watch. And Naomi, blur behind him, laughing. I heard Tyler exhale slowly in the front row. I let the video play twice. Then I closed it. That's Colton Lane, I said, turning to look directly at him. Recording himself at a dinner that Naomi's parents arranged, with a woman he knew was engaged, because his father's company was owed $340,000 by her family. I paused, and he thought that was funny enough to film. Colton opened his mouth. Then he closed it. Casey spoke first from the center of the room, her voice clear and dry. You actually filmed yourself saying that? A few people looked at Colton. He had the expression of a man realizing that the room he'd walked into was not the room he thought it was. Gerald stood up. This is completely. Sit down, Gerald, I said. Not loud. Just final. He sat. Gloria tried a different angle. Something about good intentions and family concern and Naomi's long-term future. I let her get 3 sentences in before I showed the last slide. Brett's printed record of the post from Colton's friend. Dad's been setting this up for months. And below it, in plain type, the timestamp and the account name. The room absorbed that. Norma Hansen, 68 years old, sitting in the 3rd row in her good coat, said quietly but loud enough for everyone to hear, Lord have mercy. That was the end of Gloria's speech. I closed the laptop. I'm not here to make a scene, I said. The scene was made in Charleston. I'm here so everyone in this room has the same information I have. And so that whatever version of this story gets told after tonight, it gets told with the facts already out. I looked at Naomi. She was sitting with her hands in her lap, looking at the floor, her face composed and pale. I looked at Colton. He was already reaching for his jacket. You can leave, I said to him directly. You were never really part of this. He left. No argument. No parting shot. Just a man who'd miscalculated walking out a door. The room held everything else. The morning after the barn felt like the first quiet morning I'd had in 2 weeks. I woke up before sunrise, made coffee, sat on the back porch, and let the October air do what it does best, clear things out. The room had emptied gradually the night before. Colton had left first, and nobody had marked his exit as a loss. Gloria tried to pull Naomi aside near the door, but Naomi stepped away and walked out with Casey instead. Gerald left without speaking to me. My mother hugged me on her way out and said, close to my ear, your father would have been proud of how you handled that. Then she left, and that was worth more than anything else said that evening. Tyler stayed and helped me pack up the projector and fold the tables. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. He drove back to Raleigh around midnight and texted me when he got in. I fell asleep an hour later. By Sunday afternoon, the story had started moving. I don't know who filmed part of the barn event. Probably someone's phone, probably not intentional, but a clip surfaced on social media. 30 seconds of Colton's video playing on the projector screen. His voice clear as anything. 1 week. Watch. It circulated fast. By Monday morning, it had enough views that 2 of Raleigh's local news blogs had picked it up without using names, framing it as a local interest piece on family interference in relationships. Brett texted me a link and added, "You didn't post this." I confirmed that I hadn't. He said, "Doesn't matter now. It's out." It mattered to Gloria's event planning business. She ran a mid-size operation, corporate events, private parties, the occasional wedding. By Tuesday, she had 3 cancellations and a string of 1-star reviews on her business page citing character concerns. Gerald's name came up in a private equity group he sat on. I heard through mutual contact that there was quiet discussion about his continued involvement. Nothing public yet. Nothing I'd caused directly. Colton went dark. His social media accounts, the ones Brett had been monitoring, went private within 48 hours of the barn. Raymond Lane's office did not return any calls I hadn't made. On Wednesday, Gloria called me. Not to apologize. Not really. She said she was calling to express disappointment at how things had escalated, and to let me know that she hoped, for Naomi's sake, I would consider moving forward in a spirit of goodwill. I told her that goodwill was something you built before the problem, not offered as a trade after it. She hung up. Naomi called me Thursday. We talked for almost an hour. Honest, uncomfortable, the kind of conversation you can't shortcut. She said she'd spent the week sorting through what she actually felt versus what her parents had trained her to feel, and she was finding out those were 2 very different inventories. She said she wasn't asking for anything from me right now. She just wanted me to know she was doing the work. I appreciated that. I told her so. Then Gloria sent a certified letter through an attorney, threatening a defamation claim over the barn presentation. I forwarded it to my own attorney, a solid woman named Patricia Hale, who'd handled contract disputes for my car wash business for 8 years. She called me back in 20 minutes. "They have nothing," Patricia said. "Everything you presented was documented fact. No exaggeration, no fabrication. This letter is a pressure move. I'll respond and it'll go away." It went away in 4 days. The $18,000 venue deposit. I'd already converted it to a private event, so legally it was spent and done. But Patricia found the leverage in the original wedding contract with a catering company, which had a service failure clause tied to a vendor the Stricklands had personally introduced and recommended. We recovered $14,200 within 2 weeks. Not everything, but enough. Brett stopped by the Garner location Friday afternoon. We stood in the parking lot drinking coffee out of paper cups and watching the afternoon traffic move through the bays. "You good?" he asked. "Getting there," I said. He nodded. "For what it's worth, the way you ran this. No blow-ups, no threats, no lawyers until they made it necessary. That's not nothing. It's just how it had to be done," I said. "Maybe," Brett said, "but not everyone does it that way." I finished my coffee and went back inside to deal with a pressure calibration issue on Bay 1. Normal work. Useful work. The kind that reminds you who you are when everything else is trying to redefine you. 3 months passed. The Garner location posted its best quarter since I'd opened it. I hired a new crew lead for the Apex store, a 26-year-old named Nolan who turned out to be one of the sharpest hires I'd made in years. Life moved the way life does when you stop waiting for a version of it that isn't coming. Naomi and I didn't get back together. That's the honest answer. We talked a few more times over those months. Careful, respectful conversations that both of us needed to have. She'd started seeing a therapist, she said, working through the patterns her parents had built into her over decades. I told her that was the right move. I meant it. Gloria and Gerald Strickland receded from my life the way a storm does. Loudly at first, then quieter, then just a residue you check for occasionally and find less each time. Gerald's equity group involvement ended quietly. Gloria's business recovered partially, enough to keep running, which was probably the outcome everyone deserved. Raymond Lane never called again. Colton Lane never surfaced in my orbit. That chapter was closed. Casey texted me occasionally. Updates, nothing heavy, just the small check-ins that good people offer when they don't want to make a big deal of caring. I appreciated every one of them. The thing that stayed with me most didn't happen in the barn or in my kitchen, or in any of the dramatic moments. It happened on a Sunday in December, when Tyler drove down from Raleigh for no particular reason. He showed up at noon with a bag of groceries and made a big pot of chili while I watched football in the next room. We ate at the kitchen table and talked about his classes and his roommate situation and whether NC State had a shot at a bowl game. After dinner, he handed me his phone. On the screen was a document, a university writing assignment, 1,200 words, titled, "The Man I'm Working Toward." He'd written it about me, not about my business or my decisions or the barn, about the way I'd moved through that October, the way I'd stayed steady when steadiness was the hardest thing to hold on to. His professor had written in the margin, "Rare maturity in the subject," and in the writer. I read it twice. Then I handed the phone back. "You didn't have to do that," I said. Tyler shrugged. "Professor said, write about someone worth writing about." Wasn't a hard choice. I looked at my son, 19 years old, first year of college, already more grounded than I was at 25, and thought about everything that fall had cost and everything it had clarified. I picked up my coffee. "You staying tonight?" "If that's okay," he said. "It's more than okay," I said. Outside, the December cold had settled over Raleigh the way it does, quietly, completely, turning everything a clean and honest gray. Inside, the chili pot was still warm on the stove and my son was sitting across the table from me. And I understood, in the simplest possible way, that I had built something real. It just turned out the most important part of it wasn't the thing I almost married into.